Welcome to the Millennial Body Image Project. We're two licensed dietitian nutritionists bringing you conversations that cut through the food noise, debunk wellness trends, and remind you that it's not you, it's the systems stacked against you.
Together, we'll explore the struggles so many of us carry, challenge the fear-mongering that fuels them, and offer evidence-based, compassionate tools to support your body on its own terms.
Because your lived experience matters, and your body is not the problem.
On today's episode, we're joined by GI dietitian Samina Qureshi about the nuanced intersection of gut health and disordered eating and how to support IBS symptoms without fueling food fear. We talk about why restrictive protocols, including long-term low FODMAP and costly functional testing and supplements, can sometimes worsen symptoms and drive anxiety around food, plus practical strategies for constipation, bloating, and body image heavy days. We're also doing some evidence-based myth busting, which you know is my favorite, around bread, white rice, and cultural foods. And finally, what are some things that Samina recommends as a GI dietitian that would send a wellness influencer straight to therapy? Samina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I was super excited to reach out to you because I feel like it is so rare to find other people who specialize in this intersection of gut health, gut issues, and also having either a current or past history of disordered eating or eating disorders. And we know that that takes a very nuanced approach and a very delicate kind of like balance beam to walk. So I'm really excited to dive into that with you today. But I would also love to know, do you have any like personal experience or what really led you into this middle of the Venn diagram that we both have?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I don't have any personal experience with GI disorders. I think as a baby dietetic intern, I was influenced a lot by like the calorie counting and things like that, but I never really dug myself deep into, okay, this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. So exposed naturally to a lot of diet culture, but never really, thankfully, got sucked
Yeah.
in. As a new dietitian, I started out my career right off the bat in corporate wellness. I worked for a small insurance company in Houston, Texas, and I was doing population health risk management and health coaching, basically counseling people across the United States to help reduce chronic disease, right? So I was really focused on people with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, prediabetes, diabetes, and of course, all of the GI issues that come with any of those conditions, right? And so
Yeah.
traveling, speaking with people, doing wellness presentations, all this stuff and counseling individuals. And what I found was that everybody, like literally 99% of the people that I was working with tied health to how much they weighed,
Oh, yeah.
right? I was like, okay, I can see that my patients are clients, right? At this
Yeah.
uh, struggling with a relationship with food. So I got more continuing education. I happened to walk into a half-price bookstore back in the day.
Love it.
Lived in Evanston, Illinois at the time, so like Northwestern's campus. And I walked into this half-price bookstore and was like, I need to make more like connections to my dietetic roots. Like, how do I connect with people? So I like bought all of the books that were written by dietitians, and it was like 3. And one of them was Patsy Katsus's like IBS elimination
Yeah.
book. And then one of them was the intuitive eating.
Nice.
1995 copy.
Yeah.
And so I read through them and my mind was changed. And I was like, okay, this is what I have been practicing, you know, how to help people engage in health promoting behaviors, but this solidifies it. How do
Yeah.
I now move forward and help people really manage their health without sacrificing that relationship with food? And so I started my private practice, Wholesome Start, back in 2017 while working full time.
Yeah.
And I went and I marketed myself as this non-diet dietitian or anti-diet dietitian, helping you learn how to manage these chronic health conditions without getting sucked into diet culture. And so as I worked with more people that struggled with their relationship with food, undeniably saw this connection, right? The intersection between disordered eating and GI symptoms of bloating, nausea, gas, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, you name it. I was seeing it. I was like, is going on? So at that time, I had actually been like, okay, I do want to learn more about GI health and all this. And guess what I did? I enrolled into that dietitian-led functional nutrition certification program. And what I really took away from that training was looking at the person as a whole.
Yeah.
Make sure that I am not just talking about nutrition. I am talking about their lifestyle, their sleep habits, stress management, mental health,
Yeah.
gentle movement, hydration, as well as how they're nourishing their body and their relationship with food. And that's where I pivoted and was like, okay, I'm going to take what I like from what I learned and support people now with just really uncomfortable digestive symptoms without sacrificing their relationship with food.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important to be able to, I mean, basically just like use critical thinking skills. I feel like that's a skill that's kind of being lost in our culture as we go on. But even when it applies to, your education as a dietitian and then all these different trainings that we all do, is you don't have to just accept everything and put everything into practice as it is. It's like you want to see the education for what it is, look at, okay, well, what is maybe the bias behind this? And then see, okay, well, what aspects of this apply to the people that I'm working with and
Was
what doesn't, or what could inevitably cause more harm, even if the people giving the course don't see that it could cause more harm, because that's what I had seen a lot of as well, especially in the functional world, is like, when people are kind of put on these like one track mind things of, oh, you have GI issues, like let's do this testing. We're going to do all these different supplements and then we're going to do, all these extremely expensive sessions. And a lot of the time people end up in my office and they're like, I've already spent thousands of dollars doing this stuff, but I'm still not feeling well. Like, I don't know what to do next. And I'm down to 10 foods. And that's one of the most common scenarios that I see with people coming into my practice. So I do love that you said you piecemealed it all together to see what really resonated with you and what really resonated with your clients. And I feel like the backbone of the functional approach in terms of trying to take a root cause and not just like accepting, oh yeah, you should just have fiber and that's going to fix everything. Not just saying, oh, well, this is the blueprint, aka like the low FODMAP diet, and if it's not working for me, then it's my fault. It's no, then that just means that's not the right tool for you, right? And then we also need to be really mindful of, well, even if that is a really evidence-based tool that can work for a lot of people, is that appropriate and safe for you given your relationship with food, right? So that's really, I love this nuance and I love the complexity of all of this. And I can hear that you really are passionate about it as well. So I'm glad we found each other because it feels like we're like work besties now.
stand where we came from and why we do what we do. And I'm
Yes.
the exact same thing in my practice. People are coming to me from functional nutrition or functional like doctors
Yeah.
that have put them on these crazy protocols, crazy supplement lists, and now they are experiencing literal liver failure from the numerous supplements that they're taking, as well as like more severe complex GI symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny because I was like, oh, let's start out a little bit lighter, but we're already here. But I love it. I love it. One of the things that I love doing to prepare for episodes with people who I haven't yet met is really like combing through their body of work and seeing like what they're really passionate about or what kind of lights a fire under people or what makes other people mad when you say it. And I love that you had this post like kind of semi recently that says things I would do as a GI dietitian that would send a wellness influencer straight to therapy. And it's so funny because the things that you have on there are very like neutral, evidence-based, like not inflammatory at all. But the way that some people will take those is like, I can't believe you would say this. So I have them written down. A couple of the things you said were like eat regular bread, sourdough, like eating after 6 p.m. and like
Okay.
adding seasoning to food. Oh
Well,
my God, I cackled when you said add seasoning to food because I was like,
one thing, the first one that you mentioned, right? Like tell my clients it's okay to eat regular bread unless you have celiac disease or even non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or you are on a low FODMAP diet and trying to avoid some of those fermentable carbohydrates. I mean, bread is bread. It is going to be a
mhm,
vehicle to help you meet your carbohydrate needs, meet your fiber needs, which is so important for gut health, as well as satisfaction, right?
yeah,
All of my clients that are looking for food later in the day, I always go like, well, did you eat enough earlier in the day? Were your meals substantial? Were they satisfying? Did you
mhm,
hydrate today? Right. So to stop fear mongering and demonizing carbohydrates, especially bread. It's so easily accessible and can be a vehicle for so many yummy foods.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a big tenet of functional medicine is like, if you're eating bread or gluten, you can't be here. Kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like, guys,
Yeah.
there's no part of nutrition that is a one size fits all, which is why we have this profession, you know?
Yeah.
God.
And along those lines as well, one of them that I say a lot, and I think I've made this post multiple times and it always like goes, it gets seen. But suggesting for people to eat, especially with GI disorders, like just regular white rice versus cauliflower rice. Right? One, if you are sensitive to these FODMAPs, these highly fermentable carbohydrates, having a bowl full of cauliflower rice is not going to help at all. It may also make things worse for your symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I really do like to prioritize easily digestible carbohydrates that you can consume that will help you feel satisfied and function and do everything that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of this, which I know you talk about a lot, is not only reducing the fear mongering around foods, but reducing like the demonization of cultural foods also. And we know that white rice is such a huge part of so many cultures around the world. And one of the other things you had put on that post is like, oh my God, add seasoning to your food. Crazy. But I think it's so important that we're not only looking at things from a neutral nutrition perspective in terms of like not elevating foods with morality, but also looking at where are the other sources of information or potentially like demonization of foods that people are getting their information, right, from social media, right? Because if you're only following people who are like, you should never eat white rice, it's so bad for you, or you shouldn't eat, I don't think anyone's saying like you shouldn't eat your cultural foods in those words, right? But there is like subtle undertones to this kind of stuff. But then
Yeah.
even when you understand from just a basic nutrient perspective that white rice is a low FODMAP food, and for many, many people, it is very well tolerated. And it's not that different from brown rice when we look at the actual nutrient breakdown, right? And I think even just giving that little nugget of knowledge is such a like brain blast for people of what do you mean? Like, I don't have to always every single time choose brown rice. And what do you mean that cauliflower rice could be way worse for my GI system if I have a lot of bloating and gas and all this other stuff? And it's like, well, yeah, it could. It could.
And of course, we're not going to go to the extreme of like, of course, never allowing cauliflower. If you enjoy cauliflower, what is a serving that you tolerate? And could it be added to the rice bowl?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in terms of like cultural cuisines, you're right. People aren't saying like, you better not eat your cultural foods. They're saying, how can we healthify this Pakistani dish? Right? And it's like, oh, instead of white rice, add brown rice. And you're like, well, nobody knows what brown rice is, one. And white rice is there because it's better tolerated. It blends better with the food, the taste. It's just it is there for a reason.
Because it's better.
There's for a reason. And the way that you brought up, the nutritional profile really isn't that different. The fiber content of white rice to brown rice is 1 gram, right? Or maybe even less than that. Where can you add in foods to that white rice bowl that are going to give you even more than 1 gram of fiber, right? Is
Yep.
it adding half or a fourth a cup of cooked cauliflower,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it adding some lentils or dal that are traditional to that cuisine? And so there's just so many ways. And I think another thing like that people maybe assume that cultural cuisines are not healthy because they cannot physically see the fruits and vegetables and like nutrient rich foods in the dish. If you were to go to an Indian or Pakistani restaurant and you look at the curry, you're like, okay, this is a liquid with maybe some like tofu or chickpeas, chicken, beef, or goat in it. Where are the vegetables? Right? The base of all of the South Asian cuisine is cooked in onions, garlic, tomatoes, cilantro, and other vegetables. And they're cooked to that liquidy sauce that we know as curry. And then the protein is added back into that, right? And you eat it with a carbohydrate. So just because you don't see the whole food, fruit and vegetable or whatever produce that you want to see that make you deem as healthy in a cultural cuisine doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just in it honestly more easily digestible form because it has been cooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's sometimes are certain spices added that can help break down different carbohydrates and starches and other stuff, which I don't think that we use in at least American culture, like a lot of Western culture as well. If people are looking for a way to, for example, there's a lot of research around diversifying the number of plant-based foods and number of plant foods that you eat. A great way to do that, look to other cultures, right? If you're feeling stuck with the amount of foods that you can eat, even if you are on a, let's say, semi-restrictive diet because you feel like X, Y, and Z foods really do trigger your symptoms, which obviously we're validating. We're not saying like couldn't happen to you, but I recommend looking at other cuisines to see, okay, well, there's so many different, millions of different ways of food preparation with these different combinations around the world. Like you can definitely find interesting ways to diversify your palate and diversify your foods without aggravating your symptoms at all. But then what I also always say to people, and I'm sure the listeners were sick of me saying this, is like, if food is not the origin of the problem, food alone cannot be the solution. And what I mean by that is like, unless you have celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity or some kind of food allergy or something, just eliminating the food is not going to fix all of your problems or even most of them. Because even if reducing or eliminating certain foods does help reduce your symptoms, okay, well, there's a reason that you're not able to tolerate those very well. And this is, I think, where that functional approach can be helpful, is always trying to dig deeper and see, okay, well, if you can't tolerate dairy very well, like most people would be like, oh, I'm just, okay, lactose intolerant, like I'll pop a lactate or a milky or something. But most of the time, it's not only that. There's probably some other stuff going on as well, whether it's other FODMAPs that you're not tolerating, or maybe you just had like a big course of antibiotics. And so things are a little bit rough and ready in your gut, and we need to do some restoration there or something like that. But it's always trying to see, okay, even if you are in a restricted diet and you're not tolerating a lot of foods, our goal as dietitians is to figure out what's going on and how we can help you gradually expand that list of foods, not to further restrict you, because then you're also going to develop even more food fears. And then when you eat those foods, is it a physiological response or is it a fear-based nervous system response that you're having to those foods that's causing very similar symptoms? So it can be very tricky to figure this all out.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly why we exist. We're here to help you navigate this, identify food triggers, expand your diet, overcome food fears. These are like the pillars of the work that I do.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so speaking of culture foods and going around the world with cuisine, I have a funny question for you. Is you have a post that talks about how to either lessen or like avoid travel constipation.
Yeah.
And this episode is going to be coming out, I would say, like closer to when people may be going on spring break and stuff like that. So, what do you find are some of the most helpful tips if people are going to be flying or going on long car rides, or they're going to be traveling for, a relatively extended period of time, and they tend to have slower moving bowel movements when they do that?
Yeah. I mean, for my constipated peeps, man, getting out of routine at any
Rough.
point in time can make things super rough. And so, yeah, travel constipation is real. It even happens to not people, right?
Yeah.
So, my main thing is how can we continue to nourish your body consistently? I like to say, like, your GI system is only going to function at an optimal speed as long as you are continuing to provide it with that safety of consistent nourishment, right? The moment that, oh no, I skipped breakfast, we have an early flight, I'll just get something after we land, the moment that that reduced eating happens, even unintentionally, gives a signal to your GI system that like, hey, I don't need to process anything. I can just stay, relaxed and not focus on digesting foods right now and moving
Mhm.
things on the system. Staying hydrated, I think, is really important. It's really easy to forget about drinking water or any type of liquid. If you are traveling, you want to avoid using the restroom. Who likes to like make extra car stops? Use a little bathroom that's disgusting on the plane. I get it, but it's really important to stay hydrated. And then thinking about ways that you can meet your fiber needs just to maintain what you're currently doing, right? This doesn't mean that I want you to add in a load of fiber and you're usually not a fiber, supplement person or anything like that. But if you're like, okay, every day I've been taking Metamucil in the morning. I want to learn how to do this while traveling. What little packets can you take with you? I also say, like, if you are going to be, let's say, at a conference or something, and you don't know when they're going to serve breakfast or what your breakfast options are, a really convenient one is like keeping instant oatmeal packets, like the dry packets, with you anywhere. It can be a really easy thing to put in like a coffee mug, add water, and know if that's all you have, that's all you have, and kind of make it to go in your hotel room or wherever you are. So consistent nourishment, staying hydrated, eating fiber when you can. When you see fruits and vegetables, maybe having a serving or two, like if it's appropriate. If you are at a breakfast buffet, focusing on, do they have kiwi? Do they have banana? Do they have pineapple? These things that you tolerate and can add in hydration, some fun flavors, and fiber. And then making sure that you are getting adequate rest. Like, I know sometimes it's really hard when you're traveling and stuff, but your gut likes consistency. It likes routine. And so any way we can calm that nervous system and allow it that rest and digest period, right? While we are sleeping will be really helpful. I think a couple years ago, maybe 2023, like intermittent fasting was really, really popular.
Rolling my eyes.
Roll the eyes, roll them away. But my counter for this when clients would ask me about it is, hey, we all get that rest and digest period, right? We are all essentially fasting while we sleep for an extended period of time to allow our digestive system and our organs to get the recovery and rest that they need. If you are prioritizing rest, there's no need to extend the fasting state while you are awake. Again, goes back to consistent meal times, maybe getting some movement, enjoying your life. And of course, if you're still constipated afterwards, it's okay. You can go back to your routine. It's not like an end all, oh no, I'm never going to be able to have a bowel movement. Once you get back into your routine and start to do things that you know have worked for you, hopefully things will get moving.
Yes, exactly.
Or one of us will help you.
Yes, reach out to one of us. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And actually, so to piggyback off of that, not necessarily with traveling anymore, but let's say like constipation at home, whether it's IBS with constipation dominant or just, regular constipation in general. That I'd love if you could talk about more how constipation can be one of the signs that you're just not eating enough in general too.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, our gut and our brain are connected via the vagus nerve, right? It sends communications from our brain to our gut and our gut to our brain, and they're constantly in communication. So if our body is telling our brain, hey, we haven't been receiving enough nourishment, it may, in a protective manner, slow down your digestion, leading to more constipation. So if you are not fueling adequately, your digestive system is simply not going to move the way it should, right? It may slow down, leading to worsened constipation. And so constipation can always be, for me, a red flag for, are you eating enough during the day?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And one thing I always tell people too is like the job of the large intestine, which is the last stop before things exit the body, is to reabsorb lost water and nutrients or things that your body didn't have the opportunity to absorb earlier in the transit, whether that was in the small intestine because things were moving a little too fast or, whatever. So the longer that the stool is not exiting the body, the harder it's going to be for your body to pass the stool as well. And so that's where things like hydrating fruits and vegetables can start to be helpful, and trying to drink more water than you usually do, and trying to eat more fiber, but also not doing like a fiber gut bomb. I feel like this is so trendy on social media right now, or people are just like hammering the fiber home. And if you're not typically like an intentional fiber person, that's going to be a lot for your system to handle. So here, if you take nothing else from the podcast today, do not like bomb your gut with fiber really at any time. You got to slowly work your way up there so that your body has more of a tolerance. And yes, things will probably move along more regularly if you're steadily able to meet your recommended daily allowance of fiber, which you can do in a ton of different ways. But please be careful about these things that are going around right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I also want to mention that like fiber isn't necessarily like a solution for constipation if you are already backed up for 2 weeks. Like
Oh my gosh, yeah, no.
wait, onto adding more fiber can actually like jam you up more. And
Mhm.
so coming up with your healthcare provider, whether it be dietitian or physician, a plan for like evacuating that stool that's been kind of stuck in there for a while, and then starting with your regular nourishment that includes a variety of different fiber sources, hydration, all that good stuff will be how you avoid constipation long term.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, I feel like fiber is like the girly of 2026 so far. Whereas, like, the last couple of years, it's just been like protein, 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 protein. It's like, okay, well, now we're moving on from that a little bit. But I mean, again, as with everything in nutrition, there's so much nuance out there,
Mhm.
which is why having the ability to share and consume all of this stuff on social media can be like difficult for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Social media is literally the wild, wild west when it comes to nutrition.
Oh my
Or
God.
like any
Yeah.
like it's so polarizing and the more crazy it sounds, the more wild it will spread.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that's what I always say too, is like the type of stuff that we do, like what when I was asking you about that post that you did with these recommendations that are like very sane, very neutral, very evidence-based and stuff. You're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you would do that." And but the other thing is, it's even interesting that a post like that would been seen so widespread, because typically the things that are going viral are like the inflammatory type things or like the, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I can't believe can you believe coconut oil is now the worst thing in the world for everybody?" It's like, share this with everyone you know. Everyone needs to stop eating this. And then it's so difficult too when you have a history of a complicated relationship with food because you're collecting all of these little nuggets of information as if they are not gospel, let's say, but they're all there. And then all of a sudden you're standing in front of the fridge, you have all these different symptoms, and you're like, oh, I can't eat that because I remember that little thing. And oh, I can't eat that because I remember this little thing. And then all of a sudden, again, you're down to 5 to 10 foods that seem like they're safe. And yet you're still continuing to have all of these different symptoms. And you end up in a really tough situation there. And that's why people like us exist.
Yes, we are literally combating the misinformation about nutrition to help you really nourish your body and feel your best.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, now I want to get into you had this post where you talked about how the functional medicine to eating disorder pipeline, we beg, needs to be studied. And you said something along the lines of, I'm not saying that functional medicine is all bad, but I am saying that I've seen a lot of people who start out just trying to heal their gut or work on a specific symptom, and they end up terrified of food or with a full blown eating disorder. And if people have been hanging around the podcast for a while, they know that I have been talking about this with functional medicine stuff and also with these, quote, therapeutically designed elimination protocols like Whole30 and other stuff for years and years and years. So I'm so glad to be talking about this with you now. But I'd love to hear more about your point of view on this, even though we've kind of been sprinkling it in here throughout the episode. But I'd love to really go into it now.
Yeah, yeah. I think when people are so desperate that they forego traditional conventional medicine practitioners, they seek out a functional medicine or nutrition practitioner, they are really looking for help, right? So we understand that they are desperate, that they're really seeking help, and they are putting their trust in these practitioners to really help them find the root cause and heal truly. What ends up happening is that these patients are given crazy amounts of tests that they need to take, whether it's putting their stool in a baggie and sending it to a lab and coming back and telling them how many parasites, etc.,
Not a
or
baggie, I'm dead.
or food sensitivity testing,
Oh,
or here, these are the symptoms that you have. Here's a list of all the foods you can and cannot eat, and this is a elimination style diet that we are going to do so that you achieve symptom relief. And along that, we are going to add in all of these supplements, including probiotics, prebiotics, symbiotics, like all the biotics, and help you feel your best. And what ends up happening is that along the way on this diet protocol, whether it's elimination or not, people are eliminating foods, maybe not feeling better, and saying, hey, my symptoms are still there. What can I do next? The functional medicine or nutrition practitioner tells them, let's remove X, Y, and Z foods and see how you feel next. This is the next step we're going to take in the elimination diet. Continue to limit. What I see in my practice is 3 to 5 foods people feel comfortable eating. 10, I mean, what a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
And so that goes on. They're still experiencing symptoms. They've eliminated all the foods. Maybe they can no longer afford that functional nutrition practitioner or medicine practitioner. They can no longer afford the thousands of dollars of supplements they're on, and they still have this intense, or they are left with this intense fear of food. If eliminating all of these foods did not make them feel better, how possibly could adding back these foods make them feel better too? Right? And so this is the pipeline that I'm seeing. The chronically malnourished, whether it's intentional or unintentional person, their brain is no longer functioning optimally. Their digestive system is basically shut down because they're not receiving enough food. Of course, you're constipated. Of course, anytime you eat, you have diarrhea and abdominal pain and all of these symptoms.
Yeah.
And that intense fear of food leads to additional restriction, avoiding meals completely. And then with long-term restriction or avoiding meals comes possibly binge eating, which can then turn into a compensatory behavior, whether it is purging in some sort of way, laxative, etc. I don't know, trigger warning for all of the different disordered eating behaviors that could happen as a result of this. And so it's really, really hard, right? These fears are real. When you are experiencing this level of digestive symptom discomfort, you are so scared of food. We don't know whether or not the symptoms then are happening because of that complex relationship with food in your nervous system or the food itself. And so at baseline, what I'm doing is making sure we're getting to a place of regular and consistent nourishment with foods that you feel comfortable with. And from there, reintroducing foods, expanding your diet, meeting your nutritional needs so that your brain and GI system can function optimally. But yes, this whole functional nutrition to eating disorder pipeline absolutely needs to be studied. And it's just almost every other person that I'm working with. And so it seems very loud. It seems very present.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I feel like I have seen a lot with clients that when all of this testing is done, and I have seen when I used to work under a functional medicine practitioner, no matter who came to the office, they would order a stool test, really extensive blood tests that, of course, nothing was covered by insurance, even though they would have your basic panels in there, which if you had just gone to your primary care and asked for that, that would have been fine, which is the approach that I take in my practice of I can order labs, but it's not going to be covered by insurance. So just go to your primary care, go to your OBGYN, get that. We can use your annual physical from this year, totally fine. Anyway, so they would have stool tests, really extensive blood tests, and then what was the other one they did? Oh, the Dutch test for, the urine hormone test and everything. But sure, all of those may have a time and place in situations, but it was really very the cookie cutter approach of no matter who you are, you could even just have a little tummy grumbling after your meals and maybe a couple of other random symptoms. Oh, no, you need all of these things. So by the time they even walked out of the first appointment, which was with me, by the way, it wasn't even with the doctor that they signed up to work with. You're looking at multiple thousands of dollars worth of stuff. But then what I ended up seeing very frequently was people would go in for a certain set of symptoms. And then a couple of sessions later, they're like, but I haven't even solved what I came in here for. And now we're trying to work on something else. And I always refer to this as like teaching to the test. So say they had a collection of GI related symptoms, but then it comes up that they're like iron deficient or their thyroid is wonky. And it's almost like the initial symptoms that they went in there for are forgotten. And
Mhm.
not in a way of like, oh, well, if we work on these things, it will also help with your GI symptoms because it all is very synergistic. It's almost they would leave feeling like, well, I'm still dealing with these things. And this is why I came here in the first place. So there's like an additional level of frustration, you know? And it's hard too, because even leaving the functional medicine piece of this to the side for a second, I do see a lot of people who will go to also their gastroenterologist and say they don't specialize in nutrition or they don't have a dietitian on staff. And they'll say, okay, well, just do the low FODMAP diet. But then how often do you get an appointment with your GI? Like maybe every 6 months if you're lucky, like most likely once a year. So then people are stuck on low FODMAP. And we know from the research that you're really not supposed to be on low FODMAP, at least the most restrictive form, for an extended period of time because it can actually lead to a worsening of symptoms. And so I feel like it's really the lack of follow through or the lack of continued education that people kind of just like latch onto one thing and you're like, oh, one person said this, I have to do this for the rest of my life. And it's like, no, my friend, you're actually getting nutrient deficient and potentially making your symptoms worse by staying here. But again, how are people supposed to know? You go to a practitioner who like you said, you put your trust in, and you don't expect that you're going to be led astray because, like we've been talking about, people are really struggling, whatever avenue you choose to go down. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who 2025 was like the worst medical year of their whole life. And so they just feel like they're being continuously let down by different practitioners. And it's not the practitioner's fault most of the time, right? Their needs are not being met for whatever reason whatsoever. And then we feel like we get stuck. And then you're just reaching out from more of like a fear-based perspective, or like, I'm desperate and I need help. And people are willing to do anything at that point. Oh, you only want me to eat 5 foods? Bet I can do it. If you're telling me that this is the thing that's going to improve my symptoms, I will do it. But then they do it. And then they're afraid of more foods and their symptoms aren't better. And now we're stuck again. It's just a hard place to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I think exactly what you said with the GI doctor providing the recommendation for the low FODMAP diet. I think what people don't realize is that the low FODMAP diet has 3 phases. There is
Mhm.
that short elimination period, maybe 2 to 6 weeks, to see if you have symptom improvement. If by the second week on the low FODMAP diet, you have the same symptoms, throw that diet in the trash.
And that's the thing that's missed, I think.
That's the thing that's missed. But then people say, no, I need to go harder. And I have people coming to me on year 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5 on the restrictive phase of the low FODMAP diet, never have approaching the reintroduction phase to better identify what foods they are not tolerating or which FODMAPs they're sensitive to, and then going to expand their diet. So just know, I know you've probably mentioned this on the podcast, the low FODMAP diet is not a long-term diet solution. And if you tried it for 2 to 4 weeks and you haven't seen any symptom improvement, ta-ta, bye-bye. Let's try something.
Yes. Yeah. Even if I have said that multiple times, I don't care. It bears repeating over and over and over. Okay, so listeners, we love to talk about body image on this podcast. I mean, it's literally in the title. And we obviously love talking about GI stuff. And there is a big intersection between when your GI symptoms are flaring and having a negative body image day. So I would love if you could talk about, let's say somebody wakes up, it is, a couple days before their cycle, or they're just really bloated any time of the month that it can happen, right? What are some things that we can do to give our nervous system some love, give our body some love, or even just to remain a little bit more neutral instead of negative? Say if you are waking up feeling really bloated, or if you're one of those people who the bloating tends to get significantly worse throughout the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I do not want to be seen in public like this. You're
You know,
kind of starting that mental downward spiral. What are some recommendations you would have for that?
Yeah, so bloating can be really hard. If you are someone that, struggles with it, I think this could be a really good time to provide yourself with a little bit of self-compassion and also check in with your body. So what do you have going on for the rest of the day? Are you going to be in person in the office? Are you going to be meeting people? What does your day look like? And how can you dress yourself as long as you have access to clothes that fit your body and different options? But what clothes can you put yourself in that will help you not focus on your bloating the rest of the day? Instead of wearing those high-waisted trousers that you had planned on wearing for your meeting, is there a flowy option that you could wear? If you were planning on having a little like workout moment, could you wear something that's not like a stick to your body tight outfit, so that your focus doesn't just constantly pay attention to that discomfort and kind of bloating distension that you're experiencing. I think looking at the clothes you're wearing can be a first step to just allowing yourself to go through the day without hyper fixating on it. Naturally, you're living in your body, and so you're going to experience it, but it doesn't have to be on the top of your mind every time you, like, look at yourself in the mirror situation, right?
Mhm.
And asking yourself, like, "Hey, when was the last time I had a bowel movement?" Because oftentimes, the root cause of bloating is simply having a backlog of stool in your GI system, right? If
Mhm.
there are compounding stools just sitting, waiting, backlog to come out, and you've eaten and things are kind of just stuck, what can you do to gently help you have a bowel movement? Would it be, okay, I'm going to drink a warm beverage in the morning, whether it's coffee, ginger tea, whatever soothes your gut, and then spend and create a bowel routine in the morning to say, I'm going to sit on the toilet for 5 minutes. I'm going to use a stool so that my pelvic floor can relax and have a nice bowel movement and pass without straightening. I'm going to practice deep diaphragmatic breathing while on the toilet so that I don't strain and increase my risk of hemorrhoid. Things that you can do to get your GI system moving, right? And that's a good check-in to have, and offer yourself something soothing to eat, right? If you are someone that, okay, maybe the bloating is happening because of the meal you ate the night before. You said, "Hey, to heck with it. I'm gonna have a cheese pizza and enjoy my life," and life happens. Like, that sounds amazing, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you didn't have the digestive enzymes that help you digest that food or whatever situation. What can you offer yourself today instead of ignoring and not honoring your nutrient needs that will be gentle? Could it be a bowl of like rice check cereal with almond milk?
Mhm.
Just something super gentle. So, my tips for bloating really are offering yourself something to wear that feels good throughout the day, handling constipation, if that is something that you struggle with, and continuing to nourish your body in ways that feel good to you.
Love it. I love how you called it also like an exercise moment or a movement moment, because I feel like that's just a gentle way of saying like, "Hey, if you were planning to do something really intense and difficult today, maybe we do a yoga for digestion, or we
Yeah.
go for a walk, or we just do some stretching or stuff," which can all help with floating and bowel movements also. Maybe not
Mhm.
if you're, like, really intensely cramping for
Yeah.
whatever reason, but then maybe just some, gentle laying on the floor and doing some stretches that can help with your intestines and other things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and Gas-X can be a really nice help as well, right?
Yep.
Like, not sponsored, but man, Gas-X is helpful.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and there, if you find that gas X is helpful, there are probably other tools that your dietitian can help you figure out that are all evidence-based. Although, don't just go taking random things that you see off the shelves because as we have talked about, there's no one thing that works for everybody. And a lot of the time, if you have one subset of GI symptoms, then taking specific supplements that are designed for like the other subset of GI symptoms may actually make you feel worse. So that doesn't mean it's a you problem. It was just the wrong tool in the toolbox for you in that moment, is what I always like to tell people.
Yes, and I actually wanna add to this because I will say, like, a lot of people that work with me experience bloating, and they are on a long list of supplements specifically for bloating, right? And what I'm
Yeah.
noticing now with this fiber maxing trend is that prebiotics are loaded into everything. And what is the most commonly added prebiotic in any of these supplements or like fiber bars? It's inulin and chicory root, which are high
Yeah.
ingredients, right? So I think for anyone having any of these prebiotics, they can naturally cause gas and a little bit of bloating if you're, just increasing your fiber intake. But take a note of your like bloating supplements. What type of ingredients are in there? And a lot of the times that's what dietitians can help with too, is helping you navigate the ingredients in foods, supplements, protein powders, etc., to make sure that they are not going to aggravate your symptoms. Although the claim may say helps with bloating, it could be counterintuitive.
Yeah. And hey, we can help you save some money. What if you don't need to spend all this money on all these like random supplements and stuff that you may or may not have found off of social media? And it
Yes.
happens, right? Like we get it. We get it.
Like,
Anyway, Samina, thank you so much for coming on today. This was wonderful. I have loved talking to you, and I would love to continue talking about whenever new GI trends on Instagram and stuff come up. I feel like you could be a great guest to invite back. I'm sure people will have follow-up questions and stuff. So please let everybody know where they can find you, your website and your Instagram and everything. And I'll make sure to have it linked in the show notes as well.
oh, thank you so much for having me today. If you want to follow along, you can catch me on Instagram at inclusive.ibs.dietitian, and you can schedule a complimentary discovery call with me on my website. It's www.wholesomestart.com. And I also have a free IBS flare guide. If you are someone that struggles with IBS and wants a little guidance there, go check it out.
Love it. Thanks so much. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Millennial Body Image Project. Find us on Instagram at Millennial Body Image Project, or you can find me at DanaMonsees_CNS. And if you have a question or topic you'd like me to cover on an episode, send an email to millennialbodyimageproject@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time.